Hi folks, this is the Merc at Merc's Minis, and this is my first official unboxing. So today we're going to be unboxing the Wet Palette XL Wargamers edition from the Army Painter. I've been given this by Sun & Models, who most of you know I work pretty closely with, to review and to see if it's any different, any better, or just bigger than the original Army Painter Wet Palette, which I have, and that's been pretty well loved and used and abused. And I'm hoping that this is going to be as good and better because it's got a larger space and more functionality. One thing I have found with a smaller wet palette, I'm going to just bring that into shot now. Let's see if I can juggle all the many items on my desk. Here we go. There's a small wet palette, and let's see. Now I'm a bit concerned about what might be growing inside here. Oh, look at that! Yeah, nice little bit of mould there. I'll be washing that pretty heavily again. However, you can see it's been well used. I've gone through, I think, 3 sponges now. And it's great, but I do tend to forget to take it out and let it dry off and clean. So that often means I end up having to put, if I can find it, a penny in, which is I've seen used by other people and does seem to do a half decent job of stopping the mould from happening. However, it's good. It's just not that large. You can see, against my hand size, it's okay, but it's almost like it's a kind of travel size. So great, really good use. Probably the best wet palette I've found so far, outside of maybe the red grass. However, I'm looking for something bigger and better. So let's unbox, or uncellophane as the case may be, and see what the XL looks like inside. Oh, love the sound of the tearing cellophane. Don't love tearing up off the floor. We've got very similar setup to the original wet palette, in that we've got 50 of our sheets, our palette sheets, and then 2 of the hydrofoams. I think you can buy these as a separate pack in the same way you could for the small original wet palettes. You've got the base, you've got the cover with a very useful band to keep them all together. Again, that's similar to the red grass palettes. But then I think that probably the coolest thing is the concept of having this kind of old school palette as well, and they show it being used for their kind of speed paints, which are, as we know, very similar to contrast paints from Citadel and Warhammer. Excuse me. So, without further ado, let's unbox and have a look inside. Oh, the smell of the new box. Better than buying a new car. Cheaper just than buying a new car. Okay, looks like we've got our painter painting guide. It's always good for a laugh or read on a train or plane. Selling us more stuff, no surprise there. And we have, what's this, more than 250, just again advertising by the look of it, and some QR codes for links, I'm sure, to how to get the best out of our Army Painter kit. Preparation and setup. Soak hydrofoam in water, place hydrofoam in tray, add more water if needed, standard, put your sheet on, wipe out the air bubbles and start painting. Excellent. That looks exactly like I'd expect it to look. Nothing surprising in there. A bit more advertising in the back. And on to the pièce de la résistance, the palette itself. Let's go. Okay, useful. Might use that for modelling something. Never throw anything away. That's my motto. Right, okay. What do we have here? Strange piece of paper. That's got to be just to protect the case from its own protection strap. Protection from its own protection strap. Now, there is an interesting concept. Lovely. Okay, well, for a first look, that is a large strap and quite a large box. Just to do a quick comparison. Yeah, so it's kind of like going from A5 to A4, essentially, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so there we have 2 of the original palettes fitting into that XL. So that sounds to me like the original palette is going to get the boot, unless I go away and use it on Hollybobs. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's see if we make some use of the box itself. This is like a palette situation and holder for tools and paintbrushes. Very interesting. Quite deep, actually. They're about, I'd say, almost 2 centimeters deep. They're big. Speed paint advertising. Contrast, speed paint, shades, anything liquidy will go in there. Also, just if you're doing a big batch of base paint that you need to water down, that'd be quite useful. Easy to wipe out, keep it clean. And then we have the base itself on the back. Let's have a look. Yeah, just literally just a back. I suppose you could use that for anything. No, probably not. Okay, cool. So let's have a look. There's the base. It is a tray of plastic, apparently treated to stop germs. I don't know if I believe that. However, that looks pretty funky. Then underneath, moving the strap to one side. That feels like our 50 sheets of actual palette paper. Very nice. It's all in there, and more cellophane. And then we have our water membrane, printed with the Army Painter. Hopefully we can see that on both the cameras. Fantastic. And we've got 2 of those, as I mentioned before. Brilliant. Okay, so I'm going to go away for a second. I'm going to set this palette up, and we're going to use it and see how it rolls. See you in 2 secs. Right, so we're back. I've spent a fun 5 minutes. Remind myself what it was like to do the wallpaper hanging with my parents when I was younger. That was what it felt like putting the paper on the palette. It's amazing. Twice the size of the small palette, and it was a bit of a job of trying to get the bubbles out, flatten it out. You can see there were some bubbles there. That's going to press my OCD buttons. However, it's straightforward. It's just a case, I think, of getting used to putting the paper down one end and then rolling it across. So, as with any wet palette, you wet the membrane, then you put a bit of excess water on, you get the palette sheet itself, you put that on, push it down, and there's already, annoying, some spots in the palette which look a little bit less damp. You're going to need to replenish water as you go. It's standard. That is how a wet palette works. So that's no big change or difference. What I'm going to try to do now is use the wet palette. So I've got 3 miniatures here. So let's just say hello to my various cameras. So this is a Imperial Fist Horus Heresy Praetor, which I think my goal with this is to take 10 years to paint it. He's been going for a long time. Very happy with the volumetric yellows and some of the weathering. However, I'm just faffing with him. He's about an hour away from being completed, and he's getting left at the moment. But there you go. Can we see that on the video? I wonder if that'll keep focus. There you go. Great work. Cool. So we've got him. We have a Blood Angel Fireboy, who's in a sort of a semi-state of being painted. Got a bit of volumetrics going on and some edge highlighting, and I'm going to add a little bit more to that. And we'll also do a little bit of blue base coating. Oh, sorry, I didn't show off the Blood Angel to the other camera. How very bad of me. A nice bit of dust on him as well. What you'll see me doing a lot as we go through, because, you know, I've got 2 sons, I've got a wife, I've got 2 dogs, got a very dusty household, is miniatures that get left out will need a bit of a dust, and a nice soft, or in this case, synthetic, we can see the dust come off it, synthetic brush with a little bit of snapback is great for getting dust off without damaging your miniatures. Some people use compressed air, but you know, who's paying for compressed air? So yeah, so we can see him as well. There's, you know, a good bit of work going on to that already, so it's really going to be looking at doing some edge highlighting to make him pop that a little bit more. And one of the new Liberators, who I do like these casts. They look so much, they're less stocky, they're less chubby and more business-like, and a bit more like the Spartans. So we're going to do a bit of blue on the shoulder pad, see how that works, and just make sure that, there we go, for the camera, to make sure that works okay there. So I'm just going to put 3 paints. Oh, look, I've forgotten one. The Leaper of Death, the Death Leaper, essentially Cthulhu in Tyranid form, who many of you will know and love. Undercoated with the new White Scar, which I've got to say is a really, really good undercoat paint. I think I prefer that in spray can form than over the 2 other contrast undercoats, Grey Seer and Wraithbone, whatever it is. This just seems to give, you know, that extra lumosity. So I'm going to continue doing a bit of Mados on him. Now that, of course, means what we're going to do is have a mixture of wet palette going on and the standard plastic palette, which, you know, many of us will know if we've got children from getting our kids to do things. So let's get some paints on the palette and go wild. Okay, so let's go orange first. What a nice non-complementary range of colours we've got. So that's a bit of Wild Rider Red, I think, if I remember correctly. Get that on there. You can see it's wet, the palette's wet. We get a little bit of bleed, which is fine. It's not a problem, because what you'll find particularly, or also, and I'm sure you'll be aware of this already, always make sure you've got some high quality kitchen towel with you. I forgot the word for kitchen towel. Excellent. Good work. So that's always useful. And one of the things that you will find, even with slightly tired brushes like this, not sure if you can see that too well, that is a well-used synthetic Citadel brush. What you will find is that using a wet palette will help you to keep a much sharper tip, even on brushes that have maybe had a fair bit of love. Right, cool. So I like to use Night Lord's Blue on my Liberators, just to give them an even darker blue. I did use Cantor. I'm just getting a bit fed up with doing what everyone else does, I think. So I like to do things a bit different. Don't need too much of that on the palette. Now, for those who don't use wet palettes, the reason we use wet palettes, the same way that if you're painting with all colours you have a palette, is so that you can blend colours, you can exactly match colours, and you can, in our case, in miniature painters' cases, is keep paint going without going back to the pot again. And there's those side benefits of keeping a really good tip on your brush, and it's, you know, do you know what? It's more painterly, it's more artistic, it's less method and left brain and much more creative and right brain. So that's all lovely. So that's great. We've got those in there. Let's get a slightly bigger brush, and it is only slightly bigger. However, we'll get some Majos Purple in our, I'm hoping there's no massive release agents on here, but I get a few good dobules of Majos Purple in these massively deep palette. I mean, that is huge. You know, you drink a pint from that. Let's have a wee look. Not that you should be drinking, we need to keep a steady hand. So there you go, it's a decent amount of Majos Purple. Well, for the sake of it, as it's on the brush, let's start off there, shall we? So, let's get this on both the cameras. I'm just going to hit a nice bit of Majos Purple up. Now, I've got to say, I've followed, because we all learn, and we learn from each other. It's a community after all. I've been following some really great videos for how to paint the Death Leaper. And once I remember whose videos those are, I'll put a link to that in the bottom. I think it's the Bearded Painter, if I remember correctly. So, there we go. Nice and straightforward. Obviously, speed paints, contrast, they all do the same job, don't they? They're quick, it's easy to get paint on. And look at that. Having that in the well there just makes that job of painting those large areas really, really quick and straightforward. Okay, I'm not going to do too much. This is, after all, just a bit of a demo for how the palette works. And I do want to focus on this bad boy, because this was my Crimbo present. I don't often get Wargaming Crimbo presents from the family, because I have so much stuff already. That pile of shame. The pile of opportunity. So I do want to do a good job on this guy. So look at that. Lovely. Got the whole of his Cthulhu-like shroud stroke man skirt painted up very, very quickly. There we go. Make sure I've got a good bit on there. Yeah, no, that's all right. Well, do you know what? That is going to require a bit more. There we go. There we go. Yes, okay, that was from the pot I ran out. So that's a good idea good indication for me about how much I'm going to need when I'm sat down doing my own paint tutorial on this bad boy. Cool. So that's nice and straightforward. There we go. Lovely. Let's make sure both cameras can see that. So fairly straightforward there and easy. We'll leave him to dry to one side. And a scrappy bit of paper. Let's clear that palette out. I've got various old palettes, some which were made for me by uncles when I was in my early teens. Those are very well loved now. And it's always worth getting a double of water in and clean that palette out. The main reason, not about sort of being anally retentive, there we go, nice and clean now, but certainly about looking to stop your palette getting damaged or you getting frustrated, what you want to do is clean that palette so that you don't get a huge build-up of paint. Otherwise, you're just losing space, aren't you? And that nice deep well then becomes less and less deep. So let's have a look then at doing a little bit of edge highlighting. Okay, now I've got a really good set of brushes here. These, do they have a name? Montmartre, if I'm reading that. Sounds French to me. These were a gift again from, I think they were like a TK Maxx buy. They're synthetic, I believe. They've got loads of snapback and they are really good. I've been really impressed. So, okay, let's just get a little bit of light on there. Now we are going to just do a little bit of edge highlighting there. I'm not sure if the cameraman wants to bring the camera in a little bit closer to that so we can see. Okay, and I'm just going to do a little bit of edge highlighting now. You can probably just about see that on there. And this is great because I'm doing this without my special glasses. Okay, now that's all lovely, and do you know what? I can see that when I've done this before, I have very clearly used only a slightly watered down version of that Wild Rider red. So, in good artistic fashion, I'm going to get me some white and lighten that colour up. So hold fire, folks. Okay, let's see how well mixed this white scar is. Got goodness knows how many of these. Oh, it sounds liquidy, that's always positive. Now, one thing I was saying, comes from teaching scouts and clubs in schools. You saw me leave that pot open and then realise always pop those pots down, those sit-down pots, with the palm of your hand. There's nothing worse than getting the build-up at the back or getting a bit of a crash and a bang of one up there in the background, or getting spillages. That's the worst thing. Definitely worth having some holders, whether it's ones you made yourself. I've got a few that are made out of wood, or ones that you fashioned, or ones that you've bought. They were worth their weight in gold. Nothing quite as upsetting as spilling £5 worth of paint, spilling it on yourself, spilling your carpet, on your loved ones. It's not a lot of fun, is it? Let's be honest. So here we go. This is the real kind of power part of having a wet palette. Blendy time. And because we're blending and we've got the water below as well, what we actually then end up creating is a thin down layer. And that's good, because that will help you with controlling your paint and controlling the gradations. Sounds a bit American, doesn't it? Control the gradations. And hopefully you can see there that I'm laying down just small bits. And again, one thing you will find, if you're going for a really high quality finish, is worth just spending time thinking about how light works. Some of you out there will be really probably keen photographers. They call photography painting with light. It's the same kind of thing for us. It's all about mindset. Imagine where the light builds, where it glints. I've found the best miniatures are those which have maybe less highlighting, but highlighting in more appropriate places. And it can make just such a difference to the way a miniature looks. So I'm going to just give that a little bit more around here. And this is a demo. This guy will at some point feature in my next Blood Angels army. Although I will admit that most of the army is currently sat with an undercoat of red and not a huge amount else. They are waiting an army in potentia. Cool, so look, we're getting a nice bit. And look, this is the thin brush, but look at the control. Just using the edge of that brush to get those highlights in there. And that just gives so much control. So I'm hoping that cameraman, looking for a nod, is that in focus? We good? Excellent. We got quite close in. Go for a close up. There we go. So we can see there's some nice controlled highlighting. And obviously the other great thing about this is I can come back and I can, because we got the wet palette, I can do this again at a later point. I don't have to get it all in one hit, which is great when you've got a busy lifestyle, which most of us have. Let's see. And it's no problem to introduce a little bit more water to the palette, which again is something you will need, because it's a wet palette. Wet palettes dry out if they're left out and you use them. What you've noticed there as well, by the way, I always keep an extra brush, a damp extra brush beside me. I just got a little bit of white, or the highlight colour, down the crevice that we don't want it. So quick, just get that brush. There you go, do it again. I'll wipe up any excess while it's still damp. Don't panic, don't worry about overpainting. 9 times out of 10, a quick wipe with a damp brush, and you'll pick up that colour, and that'll be it, sorted, gone. Okay, so maybe a little bit damp. Let's just use the wet palette to get that brush to a really, really tight point again, and carry on. Now, for those interested in the joys, the cerebral joys of edge highlighting, which does seem like a bit of a dark art, it's all about the consistency and the amount of paint on your brush. And then the third part is getting the angle right. I very, very rarely would use the tip of the brush. Always look to use the edge. And I will get out my award-winning new metal. I was going to say new model army for a minute. My non-metallic metal heavy intercessors, and give you an idea about how to manage that. Again, edge of brush, edge of brush. Cool, we're getting the idea. You don't have to do the whole area because that's not where the light collects. So getting a good idea there, aren't we? Starting to look pretty cool. A little bit too heavy. Again, techniques. Give it a little wipe with the finger, and you will find that again 9 times out of 10 that will resolve the issue. That's definitely too much there. One other thing I used to, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, get my paint out of my paint pot, put it on a form of palette. I thought I was very clever doing that, and then mix it in with a bit of water or a bit of a bit of retarder, and then happy painting away with a really, really overfilled paintbrush, and then wonder why on earth I was getting splodgy results. Clean the brush. You only need paint on the tip. I love that the Artis Opus range of brushes. They are so good. I've bought some. I'm going to use them soon. That'll come out in another video. And when you see the guys demonstrating those, they literally only have paint even, on the very, very tip. Cool, so we're getting the idea. Now that's all I'm going to do because I'm using this guy in a painting demonstration at Sunderland Models this evening. So don't go too far because I want to show that to the people coming along as well. But we get the idea. Okay, so that's looking pretty cool, looking pretty good. And you can obviously continue around the marine and get that done. Another nice little idea. In fact, you know what? While it's here, let's do it. Let's get some of that unfettered white for a second. In fact, I'm going to turn that palette around a touch. Remember, you want to make your life as easy as you can for you. So, if something's not at the right angle, change it. Change where you sat, change your hand angle, change the angle of the model, the palette, whatever it might be. Okay, so we're looking at that Aquila on his chest. And I'm just going to pick out, this is where I wish I had my other glasses. I'm going to pick out a few little highlights just carefully. Just so we get another sense of really bring the 3D to that. It's a little bit faffy. Is it entirely necessary? Definitely not for tabletop standard. But I have a real problem with just painting for tabletop standard. I like things to be as good as they possibly can. Okay, getting the idea there. And once again, if you water things down a little bit more, then you'll have less opacity and you can afford to make a few more mistakes. Cool, so that's looking okay. Hopefully we can see that in the camera. There we go. Make sure I'm getting that in the right place. Lovely, and that works pretty well, yeah? Okay, good. Perfect. So, Blood Angel looking ever more space vampire-y. Okay, let's go for our blue then. Our Night Lord's blue. At some point I will get around to finishing off my Horus Heresy Night Lord's army, which I did invest in heavily and have then let sit. Okay, cool. So we're going over metallics here. Metallic spray, lots of metallics. That's very, that's very Stormcast Eternals, isn't it? All about the metals. Love the idea of painting an army in non-metallic metal. Can you imagine how many hours that would take? Okay, so the joy of the wet palette here is, well, that we can just water things down. With base coating, this is not exciting work, but we can water the paint down as much as we want. We're not having to step on a palette, get it to consistency, and then just work at that consistency. Maybe every so often refreshing the paint slightly. Now you can keep that going live as we go, which is very nice indeed. Yeah, and that just allows us to work carefully, make the most of our modelling time. Because unless you are still at school, college, not got the joys of family, then your time will be limited. That's just the way life is. According to my better half, I've definitely got more models I could paint in a lifetime. I intend to prove her wrong by buying more models. Like the rest of us. Enough is never enough. So, cool, we've got the idea there. Now that's quite a nice thin wash. Thin enough that we can just blow that dry. And then move fairly quickly. And obviously if you're doing an army, again that's a very useful thing, or if you're batch painting, which I quite often do if I'm doing commissions, and particularly for Sundon, because I tend to get given the owner's armies, the owner's son's armies to work on, which is great. But it does mean lots of the same models. Cool, so obviously I can keep going around that as I need to. What I do, because I do have an army of Liberators, Stormcasts, is I'll do that first coat, next one, do the next coat, just keep strolling around, probably refresh the amount of water on the palette. But let's talk palette, because that's what we're here for. So the palette, it's big, I like it. I like the fact I'm not feeling I'm working in miniature, even though there's no reason to kind of clump up and get your arms caught up and worry. When you've got that small palette, it feels more constrained. That's maybe kind of a mental thing more than anything else. But I like this. I like the size. It feels like I can make a mess. It feels like I can make mistakes and lay out loads of paints and not feel that I've got kind of a palette where I'm using it just for one model. Then, I'm going to have to get a fresh sheet and do it again. This feels like it should continue to be used for a good length of time and not be a problem. So that's great. Usefulness of the plastic palette, the spacer. Yeah, do you know what? Obviously you can put your pens, your brushes in there, your paint pens. And that's great. It's great for taking things around. Just keeping the pens done it again. The brushes that you want to use in one place. If you are like me and you've got stacks and stacks of brushes, I have about 5 different containers of brushes. So that's useful. It's definitely with the depth of these paint wells. I'd say that's great. Whether you use it for their own speed paint, or whether you're using it for contrasts or shades, washes, inks, whatever. That just seems to work. You could do an army with that and happily put your paint in and crack on, not have to refresh it too often. I like that idea. It's going to be interesting to see how it works, how it does in its travels. Tonight, this is going with me to my painting tutorial down at Sundon Models. So we'll see how it does there. I will do my best to keep it flat, but you never know with my driving and transporting things from one place to another, you never can keep things entirely flat. What I would say as well, I don't know if I can see that, that's an okay, I'm going to say okay fit. Does that fit any better if I turn it around? Let's see. Yeah, okay, maybe that's a better fit. I think you need to be careful that you've got the best fit you can, because it's not, you know, with the greatest one, oh, that's a better fit, I've got to say that as a tight fit. There's no rubberization, so it's not hermetically sealed, it's not completely airtight. So there is going to be a little bit of drying that goes on as you, as this thing sits in between painting sessions. Unless you are one of the lucky few who's painting all the time, then it is going to spend some time sat there, isn't it? Cool. Okay, so happy with that. I'm going to finish up there for this session of Mercs Minis and prepare for what hopefully will be an exciting volumetric armour painting tutorial down at Sundon Models today. There is, as always, a Sundon Models link where you can get this lovely Army Painter palette for a reduced 15% off price. And they have the whole Army Painter range at the shop at the moment. Absolutely everything. It's a little bit like a garter belt, isn't it? Lovely. That's holding it all together. That feels lovely and firm. Please do go down and have a look in Sundon, at Sundon if you're local, or have a look online. They are great people and they will help you out. They've given me this gratis to show you guys how this works. And I've got to say I'm very, very happy to have it. I think that's going to do me a great job in terms of my model painting and also demonstrations and the work that I do with people who are learning how to paint. So please do like and subscribe. Look at my other videos. There's lots more content coming. And I hope you enjoy the Mercs Minis channel. I hope you enjoy using a wet palette. And if you're going to invest in one, there are lots of others out there. So please do look around. This retails, I think, for around about £30–35. That's pre-discount. You can get them Sundon, get them off Amazon, get them a lot of different places. Make sure wherever you go, talk to people there, you know what you're getting. I think you'll have a good time with this palette. Okay, folks? One last look for cameras. See you soon. Have a great time and like and subscribe.